Hello everyone, I'm the storyteller, and I'm here to accompany you today. I know you're watching this video to relax or help you sleep. So first, please like and subscribe. Where are you from? What time is it? Relax, unwind, and enjoy the moment. Bring me a dream. I haven't slept well lately. It's not a particularly uncommon problem, but I'm afraid my cause might be a bit abnormal. Falling asleep happens easily enough. It's more of an issue of staying asleep. Over the past few days, what happens when I wake in the night has a death grip on my psyche. A few days ago, I came downstairs to see my wife, Katie, drinking coffee while our toddler kept herself entertained with a cardboard box. I poured a mug of morning elixir. I slightly kicked at the box and hopped around the child. "Caroline, we could save a fortune giving you boxes to play with instead of toys." "I am surprised you are up already." Katie raised her eyes and looked over her mug. I stretched in my seat. "Well, I like to sleep in, but it's not exactly early." "Yeah, but you tossed and turned all night," Katie replied as she rinsed her mug. "Par for the course," I laughed. Nights of rest were long gone before having children, let alone after. Waking up in the night in panic, checking a monitor for the relief of safety, questioning shadows in the dark, or if the door locks were steadfast in their duty. Last night was one of hundreds and thousands yet to come. "Sure, but why did you do that arm thing? You wouldn't stop." She looked at me, slightly confused, maybe even concerned. The cardboard box was loudly being ripped across by a green-colored pencil, as Caroline had decided to decorate. "Arm thing? What are you talking about?" Suddenly I shifted uneasy as my shoulder felt a bit stiff. I had no clue what she could have meant. I couldn't recall the dreamless night before, not unlike nights ahead. I may not sleep like a log, but I couldn't remember waking up, let alone doing something during the night. Katie chuckled. "I turned over and you had your arm pointed straight up in the air." "Huh? Like my fingers pointed straight up?" "No, more like limp-wristed," she replied with a demonstration. She slid down her chair, sat her mug down, and raised one arm up. Caroline let out a giggle, laid down, and raised both her arms up while kicking her legs. "No, no, no. I guess that's sorta odd." I shrugged with a chuckle at Caroline's display. Now she had gotten on all fours and started snorting heavily. See, I had bouts of sleepwalking when I was younger. Slammed my nose directly into a door frame, woken up to falling into my bed. I suppose hanging my arm up wasn't that far of a stretch. Nothing to worry about. All sorts of weird instincts and functions happen when you sleep. My arm probably fell asleep from laying on it. The more I thought about it, the more I felt the ache in my shoulder. I rotated it a few times around feeling it pop. "I probably just slept on it," I told her, finishing up my last bit of coffee. "Yeah, probably." "When are we leaving to go to the park?" Katie asked as she picked up Caroline. "Whenever. I just need to get dressed." Barring some tantrums over leaving the park, the day progressed in tranquility. I didn't even give our conversation a second thought. It burrowed far into the recess of my mind. After we came home, and I spent some time coaxing a small child to sleep with fantasy tales of princesses and the knights that rescue them from wicked creatures, Katie and I spent some time on the couch and went to begin the bedtime routine. "Luke, don't tell Caroline scary stories. I get that you like scary stuff, but she's still little." I was in the middle of changing my clothes when Katie spoke. It had taken a moment to process the censure. She sat with her back against the backboard, arms crossed waiting for my retort. "What? Scary stories? I don't think a rescued princess is that scary." "You're going to scare her. Some of the stuff she repeats are a bit much." I had no idea what she meant. Katie could find worry in fresh-cut grass if it were to acquaint with Caroline. "Like a giant killer shark?" I replied, shaking my knees with feigned fear. "I am serious," she glared to confirm the statement. "Sure, honey, I will tone it down," I reassure as we lie down. As I kissed her cheek and felt the comfort of the blanket, I thought to adapt less monsters and more villains moving forward with the bedtime wonders. "Where did you come up with it anyway?" "With what?" "The monster you told her about last night." Last night, I regaled Caroline with a story about a fur-footed girl traveling with a handsome wizard. They happened to look strikingly like Caroline and myself. They unfortunately ran into large, hungry trolls. The descriptions of the snarls and hunger for flesh must have stuck with her. That would be my fantastic creativity. Yeah, okay, and when she watches those movies, she is going to know what a thief you are. Sure enough, the next morning came, as it always did. My phone wailed out in distress. I silenced it and began to wrestle with the exhaustion in my eyes. First things first, I stared at the baby monitor and found our little girl still sleeping, safe and sound. No dreams of sharks, trolls, or even dragons. Abandoning the warmth of my bed, I convinced my body to make my way to her room. After I turned the knob, I felt my hand slide around the metal. Looking down at my hand, there was a powdery black substance that had smeared on my hand. It kinda looked like ash or soot. Did we have something on our hands when we closed the door? Maybe some sort of oil in the handle was leaking out? I wasn't sure. I wiped my hand across a pant leg, the interruption escaping my thoughts. I opened Caroline's door, not trying to be very loud, but not quiet either. She is lying in her small bed, supporting her entire body with her head as usual. "Good morning, honey. You ready for breakfast?" My voice interrupted the silence of the room. I gave her a gentle shake and brushed her hair. The sheets slightly jerked on the bed as she stirred and then yawned, expelling the night from her body. I kept soothing her awake as I looked around her room. She had left her closet door open. She had been found guilty of getting out of bed during the night and roaming around her room. A reasonable deduction as I noticed some of her toys watching me out of the dark of the door. I stood up and opened the door and began pushing the toys back out of the opening. On the hardwood, I discovered more ash. "Huh, Caroline, did you break a crayon? It's all over the floor." "No, Dada," she slurred as she sat up. Kids lie. Maybe they're afraid of punishment. Maybe because it just makes sense to them in the moment. Who knows why? "Okay, well, baby, when you make a mess, you need to let mommy or daddy know. You got, whatever. This is on our door too." Caroline waddled over to me and pulled my leg. "I didn't, Daddy. Baba did." I picked her up, making sure that she didn't get any of the mess on her. Nothing too bad, just a bit her feet. Staring at the floor, I could find the evidence where she had tracked it to her bed. We head out of her room towards the kitchen. Well, Baba needs to tell me. He will. Kids are weird, and they otherwise do or say outright creepy things. After dealing with it for years, you stop really thinking about it. We go back to my bedroom and gently, as gentle as a child can be, we wake up Katie and eat breakfast before I must go to work. During work hours, find it in themselves to move slowly. I kept a healthy dose of caffeine to keep the exasperation at bay. The drive home would have been as mundane as any other time if it weren't for the detour thrust upon me. Wipers swiped across my windshield, erasing away the rain that pouring down. I had just came over a hill to find there is a commotion impeding everyone's drive home. An older man in a yellow jacket was waving everyone to take a left up the hill, a slight back road that shortly circled back to the main road after a ways. I usually keep to myself, but eyeing this scene stirred something in me to be a bit nosy. As I slowly came up, the man I rolled down my window, paying the price in rain battering my face. "Hey, what's going on?" The man raised his hand to his mouth to speak over the weather. "A bunch of pigs broke out of a truck and started running into the river. They are all over the road. Someone totaled their car into one of them. Go!" The man waves me off to the turn. He had no more time for explanation. Pulling up the road slowly, I peek over my passenger side to try to make out the scene. I have heard a tale or two in my life, but cannot say that suicidal pigs were something I was familiar with. There was a truck with a livestock trailer with the gate ruptured open, no doubt from the escape of the herd. A small white sedan sat crumpled against one of the beasts. Its corpse had erupted over the hood like sausage burst from its casing. A woman held her head with a cloth as she overlooked the damage to her vehicle. A man, the herdsman maybe, stood on the side of the road staring at the legion of animals that had made it to the water. If he was upset, he hid it well. He just stood there, arms hanging to his sides, vacant expression and eyes sunken. After the detour, it was the journey as usual. We repeated our cozy routine, ate dinner, played games with Caroline, making up rules as befitting of her victory. And within short order, it was time to put her to bed. This time, I told her the story about a man who must save his wife from a bunch of bad men in a skyscraper, adding as much silliness as I can for a small child's amusement. After she is tucked in, I made my way to the exit. Daddy, I want a good dream. I am sure you will one baby. I waited at the door to entertain the jovial questioning that tends to prolong going to sleep. Do you have good dreams? She yawns out her question. Daddy doesn't have dream, honey. When I was younger, I got hurt, and now Daddy doesn't really dream anymore, I confess to her. Oh, she tiredly replies, most likely not understanding what I said. I dream a lot, she disclosed as she turns to get a better look at me. My dreams talk about you, Daddy. I softly smiled. Well, I am glad you dream of me, sweetie. No, Daddy, my dreams talk about you. I don't see you. Oh? And do they tell you about how strong and handsome I am? With a soft chuckle, I leaned on the frame waiting for her answer. They told me to ask you about your dreams. Ha, well, like I said, honey, I don't really dream. Just a few days prior, she had asked me if I see through my own eyes, or do I see my full body like she does? Children are full of learning and trying to comprehend reality around them. At the time, it just seemed like one of those times. The only reason it is obviously strange now is due to the events that preceded it. Today, I would question everything even slightly odd. Maybe that's good, Caroline yawned once more, and I knew it was my cue to let her drift off. Katie and I eventually go to sleep after some short chatter. As for what I told Caroline, when I was about 5 years old, I got clipped by a car. I was in the hospital for weeks. My skull was cracked alongside several other injuries. As I recovered, it appeared that aside of no longer having dreams, I would be relatively normal. The doctors told my parents that all things considered, it was the best outcome from such a severe head injury. I can't complain. I would trade dreams for an able body. There were talks of long-term affects, and I have routinely been through scans and follows up my whole life to make sure we can catch any further complications should they arise. There was the issue of how I got clipped by the car. The driver swore that I ran into her. According to her, I wasn't playing or chasing. I just ran into the car's path. She swore that she had seen me standing beside the road, that I was obviously following the traffic visually. Then, as she got too close to stop, I jumped in front of her car. If it had been an SUV or a truck, I probably wouldn't have problems sleeping today. But with her small sedan, I rolled up and over the hood, cracking her windshield as she slammed her brakes. She made no effort to abandon me and was the first to call for an ambulance. To this day, I am sure she hadn't done any wrongdoing. I do not know why I ran out in front of her car. Most of my childhood prior to the accident is fogged either by youth or the trauma of the accident itself. My parents said I slipped out of the door, sneaking out like kids tend to do. According to them, they were carrying in groceries, and one moment later, I was no longer playing with toys on the floor. There was some minor strife as the state had assigned a caseworker to make sure my home was safe and proper. Outside of some cases of bruises that everyone assured was due to the accident, the caseworker found nothing to be alarming. Life went back to normal, and I grew up healthy and fine, albeit without a single fantasy to keep my slumbering mind busy. This night, though, I found myself dreaming. For a nameless reason, my eyelids sparked open, allowing the darkness of the room to obscure my vision. I looked over and could make out Katie sleeping beside me, and I began to shift my weight over to my side. Only I couldn't. Quick unease stirred in me. My eyes scan around. I seen a hand floating above my chest. My arm suspended above me, just as Katie claimed. I pulled it down to my side. At least the command struck from my mind, but my body quietly ignored it. My unease was becoming panic. I couldn't move. I kept trying to move any part of myself. Only my eyes would obey. In my mental fumbling, my vision found something. Something that shouldn't have been there. In the doorway they sat. I uselessly think to shout out to Katie. Luke! I would have jumped and screamed if only my nerves listened. Rectangle pupils surrounded in a sea of yellow flood into the room. Not one pair, but several. You have stolen from me. The voice is terribly beautiful. As it envelops me, it is the voice of a father, an elder, a lover, and a child. Separately, simultaneously. I realize that I want to hear it again, while desperately praying that for it to never find the desire to break silence again. It is awesome. It is horrific. The orbs shift so slightly forward, different pairs took their turns blinking. They cover the unseen body. They move independently from one another, but of the same body. As one pair dance towards me, another flanks. Too far beneath them, a maw revealed. A mouth, perhaps, of sharp teeth glistened in the dark. Spittle seeped from the black tongue that flicked between the razors. Not only have you stolen time, with it, you created more. I clasped my eyes shut. This was just a dream. My first dream in many years, of course, would be a nightmare. Shortly, it would be gone. My hopes would not realize quickly enough as I heard a slap of flesh, a scraping across my floor. I felt several spots of warm breath hitting my face. "You haven't any more time, Luke." The voice ripped into my body. I heard drips fall on the floor. I could only smell the consistent effect of seawater and wet fur. But, with each source of breath, slamming against my body, blowing my hair around, a hunt of decay, like that of meat that has been left out in the heat. An unfortunate animal baking on the roadside from hours ago. My heart is racing towards an unknown goal. I can feel my breathing getting more and more shallow. I can feel my own conscious escaping my brain. A barrage of horns scream and steel clash. My useless arm joins its twin as my shoulders force me up. A command not from my own thoughts. The sounds do not relent. I knew that I was pleading for my body to stop. I knew that something else was quietly, politely even, declining. I felt the furnace of the beasts breathe scorching across my face. My heart pounds much too hard and in a frantic rhythm. Bile coated my throat. The lids of my eyes only just governed my vision. My head looked only forward. My eyes pushed as far as they could to the side of the bed, just barely failing to find their mark. There is much atrophy. The beast's conclusion is only slightly decipherable through the noise. As suddenly as it rose, I felt my body thrash back to the bed. My head found its new position. I couldn't see Katie. Why had she not woken up to free me? I rolled my eyes back and forth, looking for the beast. Fear argued with itself as I wasn't sure I wanted to find it. The sea slowly fading from the room, the trumpets concluding their play. In the doorway once more, I finally found the collective of wet yellow eyes peering. The mask that they belonged to was released. Do not prefer delusion to truth, Luke. Only the eyes remain. The terrific, beautiful voice only just yet lost its daunting volume. I shall yet leave the sea. Luke! Luke, get up! Katie shouts, shaking me free of my paralyzed state. I dart my eyes open, my mouth drawing as much air as my lungs will hold. Holy shit, Jesus. It's 8:30. Luke, you are going to be late. Hurry and get up. Katie pushes me up to get out of bed. I struggle to return to the monotonousness of reality. I had a dream. A nightmare, actually. I spewed out in a flurry as I began to get dressed. Katie just made a slightly confused face. I thought you didn't do that, she said, as she threw an article of clothing at me before turning to look at the monitor. Caroline is still asleep. I don't know what changed. Well, text me when you get to work. I will go get Caroline for breakfast. I love you. She handed me some socks and headed out the door. I quickly returned her love and finished dressing. I almost slip on the floor. Something wet and viscous remains on my side of the bed. At the time, it wasn't lost on me that it was strange. But I was late for work, and Rent was a horror that I was much more familiar with. I enjoy the occasional horror movie. I would like to say that I understand how annoying it is to see a character oblivious to obvious signs of something otherworldly. You will have to forgive my dense reaction to that night. Logic and rationale of a mind conditioned to the norm are not so easily shaken. Despite what may be the truth, the only thing I wanted to do was find out why I began dreaming again. A quick appointment with Dr. Elijah with all the bells and whistles. The claustrophobic-inducing voyage into metal monsters and hopefully promising results. In truth, with my experience, I could sleep through the process of these scans. This appointment, I decided not to. As I said, brain injuries aren't something you entirely ignore. You monitor long-term effects and make sure nothing has gotten worse over time. This wasn't such a case. To my surprise, Elijah was almost giddy when he had me indulge him across his walnut desk. Well, Luke, I must say I rarely have seen something like this. He put his elbows on the wood to lean forward. His creaking chair accompanied his words. You have no signs of ever suffering a head injury. If I hadn't seen it before, you couldn't convince me it ever even happened. He held the papers in one hand as he rolled his shoulders, shaking his head in astonishment. For all the joy that should have hatched in me, I found a cuckoo of indifference instead. I understood at that moment that it was indeed a blessed thing. Previous fears of not living to see grandchildren, or wishing that I hadn't lived to forget them, had suddenly abandoned me. But in the moment of the doctor's revelation, salt and brine filled my mouth, and fire kissed my face. Dr. Elijah smiled with true glee and authenticity. Luke, I believe you will dream again. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you think. Relax, unwind, and get some sleep. See you in the next video.